We have a massive report as Frank Saravalli said that if PAtrick Kane makes it to market out of Detroit, Montreal will be a team that is preparing a pitch to bring him in to help mentor their young guys. We have to get into PAtrick Kane potentially being a Montreal Canadian and a little bit of a breakdown on some of the sneaky good Habs draft picks, including MAKAR, a 7th round pick who's better than you expect, and Logan Sawyer and Owen Protz, all having some really nice upside. So we're going to get into all of that on this episode of Habs Digest, and we're just going to start right away, Jesse, with Owen Protz. Now, Owen Protz, he's a very interesting guy, and the first thing I want to bring up is his elite prospects quote, and yeah, you guys are absolutely going to love this, so let's bring it up here. When Protz steps on the ice, he holds a monopoly on violence, smart violence. He steadily angles attackers to the outside, lining them up for a bone-crushing hit. He eliminates the attacker's options on the cycle, then slams them to the ice. He'll shut down rushes, move the puck, and activate in the offensive zone. Now, the big thing with Protz, Jesse, he's 6'1". He actually showed a bit more offensive upside when after being moved from Sudbury, I believe it was from Sudbury to Brantford. Really interesting player. What are your thoughts on Owen Protz? You know, a guy that we haven't heard a ton about, but I love the idea that they're getting a big physical shutdown defenseman.
Who's also really big on open ice hits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, call me old school, but I just like a player like that. I think that Arber Xhekaj is going to like this player as well, right? If they get the opportunity to play together, because it's a player, again, that's, you know, really disciplined, plays with that hard edge style. But what's so impressive is that he knows what the line is. He knows what's too much, and he really plays within that. Doesn't take too many penalties while being such a big physical kind of shutdown guy. We're seeing that like his gap control is very good as well, right? So just needs to work a little bit on the skating, you know, on the hands a little bit. But honestly, seems like a very interesting prospect for the Habs here.
Yeah, like the physical tools seem to be there. He knows how to use his body, which is a big thing, especially for guys who, I mean, he's not like way above the average height. He's about average height for a defenseman at 6'1", but to know how to use yourself physically, that's always an intimidating presence for an offensive player coming into your zone. So sneaky good pick in the 4th round. I mean, it's not like he was ranked way higher, but to get those kind of guys, Jesse, you always have to maybe reach just a little bit, but the Habs clearly had a motive for, like a little motif on who they wanted to draft, and this kind of guy can fit on any team. But speaking of that, there's a guy that also I wanted to talk about a bit, and that's Logan Sawyer. Now, some of you guys probably saw his interview, his post-draft interview, and this guy is awesome. I love Logan Sawyer. He was so happy to be a Montreal Canadian. He said instead of going to the OHL where he was drafted, he decided to move to Brooks, a tiny town out in the BCHL, to go to school as well. So he's a smart guy as well. I'm going to bring up his elite prospects quote right here. The thing with Sawyer, he kind of does it all, right? He's a do-it-all winger. He's built on work ethic and motor, constantly looking to pull defenders off puck. Tactical pace increases allow for the deft entries into soft space where he can work one-touch passing and shooting. And yeah, I really like Logan Sawyer too, Jesse. Of course, 19 points in 20 games, but he had 15 points, including 7 goals in 12 playoff games. He's one of these guys that'll probably take a little while to develop within, you know, the Habs system or whatever. I believe he's going to the University of Providence in the NCAA next year. Your thoughts on Logan Sawyer? Again, just another one of these guys. He's listed as a center. He projects more as a winger. Just another one of these guys who seems smart, super skilled, and he himself said his hockey IQ is one of his best assets.
Well, that's it. And with the Montreal Canadiens, they feel now that their top 6 is full, right?
Yeah.
With getting Ivan Demidov, I believe that as soon as they got Demidov, they felt like Nikas is like off the board now. They got who they needed, that younger guy for their top 6. So it's like they get an opportunity now with Logan Sawyer to kind of take some opportunities with some defense too, like those high probability turnout sort of players, right? So with a player like this, you gotta love just the motor, the compete level, which we know is so important, you know, to this team. And as well, you got to feel like that's something endear you to a player like, you know, Brendan Gallagher as well. Just somebody, he has like amazing conditioning, this player. So he's able with that compete. Not only does he have that, but he's able to keep that going over the course of a game. So of course, when you have a player that competes, if you can then combine that with skill and speed and skating, that obviously has the makings of a good hockey player here.
Yeah, and it's not only good hockey players, it's these great personalities. Like when you watch these interviews with these people, they're so enthusiastic, they're so happy. And Logan himself said in his post-draft interview, he had interviews with most teams, but he said he has such a good feeling about the one with the Montreal Canadiens, and he's thrilled to put on that sweater, that jersey. And I think that's a theme we've seen with a lot of guys, Jesse. And well, for the last guy we're going to talk about here before we get into PAtrick Kane, we didn't really hear much from him because he was not really scouted by many. Now, McKeen's Hockey, Jesse, had this next guy 132nd, I believe, in the rankings. I don't think anyone else even had him ranked. but that's MAKAR. Yes, the Habs drafted MAKAR in the 7th round, and this is a very interesting guy. Now, he actually doesn't even have a bio on Elite Prospects, but what we do have is Nick Bobrov's quote on him in his post-draft presser alongside Marty Lapointe. Let's bring this up. MAKAR is a player with a lot of skill playing in the VHL, which is a very tough minor league. For those who don't know, the VHL is one above Ivan Demidov's MHL, but it's one below the KHL. It's between the MHL and KHL. For a very young kid, he managed to separate himself this year. We followed him all year. He's a player with a lot of skill, flair, and he's kind of a Demidov light. We swung for the fences. He's one of those boomer bust picks. Jesse, we know Nick Bobrov has all those connections in Russia, and MAKAR, again, super high upside here, 27 points in 35 games as a somewhat undersized teenager in the VHL, though I believe he's now listed over 6 feet tall. I could be wrong, and I believe he's gained a bit of weight. 7 goals in 7 games in the MHL, the same league Demidov was in. I mean, I love this kind of pick, right? He's the guy who already turned 19, a guy you've been following all year. To take a swing like that in the 7th round, to me, that's the perfect use of a late round draft pick.
Absolutely. They're using some really great analytics too to see what type of profiles are the ones that really hit later on in the draft and everything. And this is what's nice, Josh, about having your top 6 a little bit more set than it was just a couple days ago, is now it really allows you to take some flyers, right, on some players that might have that, high potential, right? But it's basically something where obviously you're not losing anything, but that upside, if you're there in the 7th round, why not kind of take a shot if this player is still available? There is that offensive talent. We've seen whenever he's kind of performed with players close to his age and size, he's done well, points wise. So you have to feel as he kind of matures, eventually gets into the KHL, this is a player to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. I love this too. And the fact that McKean's I like McKean's rankings. Sometimes they're a bit weird, but they had him as a 5th round caliber talent. And, with these Russian prospects, sometimes you never really know. Guys, don't forget Kaprizov, I believe he was a 5th round pick, is a guy I love to bring up. Now, I think Russian scouting's changed a bit, and the KHL is not as good as it was, and the VHL is not a super high skill league, but it's kind of a rough league, right? It's like the AHL to the NHL. The AHL is definitely more skilled, I would say, but they still have that physicality, that kind of stereotype of them being physical. So the VHL, regardless, is a man's league. The big guys in that league, and Hanin was able to do what he could do in that league, Jesse, putting up a lot of points. So really high upside pick there. But speaking of someone with potentially some high upside and not too big a cost, we got to talk about this. This came out of absolutely nowhere just before we started recording this video. Probably actually about an hour before. And it's PAtrick Kane. PAtrick Kane to the Montreal Canadiens. Are you serious? Yeah, we're serious. Let's bring this up. Frank Saravalli reporting. Actually, I'm going to go with this view because it's a bit nicer. The Red Wings are among teams grinding with their UFAs today, and belief is they've made progress with PAtrick Kane. But the next 24 hours are going to be wild. If Kane makes it to market, sources say that the Habs are preparing a pitch for him. Jesse, what are your thoughts on the Habs? Oh, I got to get rid of that chapter. What are your thoughts on the Habs potentially making a pitch for PAtrick Kane? To me, he's kind of that prime candidate for that short-term veteran deal to help mentor your young guys. I feel like I didn't expect this, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this at all, but there is some logic here, right? If we're looking out the Habs, there's at least, there is just one clear spot in their top 6 now, just in general. And for me, it really makes sense to add a vet to that spot, right? Not only one, we still need the skill, we still need scoring, but I would argue you don't want to just have all of your top 6 all be fairly young players. We know that Suzuki's getting his experience, Caufield still young. You need a real vet in your top 6 if you want to be serious, right? So obviously we're not expecting this. There's a lot of different things that go on PAtrick Kane, but the fact of the matter is that he's basically still a point per game player. He's coming off an injury last year. You have to feel like he's going to be even better next year, right? He was projected to get 77 points this year. Imagine at 35 still being able to play this way. And for me, he almost makes sense more than a Marchessault kind of thing, because with Kane, you feel with the age, he's looking for that shorter term deal anyway, which fits. If we're able to give a 2-3 year deal, this is absolutely, kind of fits our timeline. But again, you want some of that maturity as you're looking to kind of take that next step, providing a little bit of experience. Obviously he would be of great service to Cole Caufield, working on those one-timers. everything else. So, I mean, this is very interesting. We do definitely need to add a vet to our top six. And PAtrick Kane, I can't believe I'm saying this, could possibly fit that bill.
It's crazy, right? And I think, like we were talking about, he kind of fits in that golden spot where Stamkos might be demanding a bit too high of an AAV for the Habs to be interested in paying him that much per year. But someone like a Marchessault, who's kind of 33, might be looking for a much longer term deal, whereas Kane is probably going to want some security. Like, he's probably going to want 3 or 4 years. But if you're the Habs, like, and you look at him, you have that injury history. He played for not that much money last year. Like, it kind of makes sense that you could probably get away with paying him much less than a Marchessault or a Stamkos, but also not have to pay him for like 5-6 years. He's going to be 40 in 4 years. Like, it is what it is, right? So a 2 to 3 year deal makes some sense for a team. And if it's at a decent AAV, again, like, why not? And he can mentor all these guys, right? Kirby Dach has that Chicago connection as well. There's a lot of different connections here and there, but also, like, what if, Demidov comes over and he already has incredible puck handling? Imagine him learning from Kane. And while I don't think Kane's going to be expected to be a top 6 player, until he's 40, at the very least, if you can get him for a decent price, Jesse, he can produce that. Like, there's no reason, if he stays fairly healthy, even if he plays 50, 60 games next year, I know Monahan's way younger, but like, kind of that expectation that we have with Monahan, it's like, look, if we sign you, we get you for a decent price, kind of whatever you put up, and the rest is gravy. Now, Monahan ended up being way better, but like, I kind of feel it's a similar situation, and I'm starting to sell myself that this could happen. Now, whether Detroit lets him go to the market or not, I don't know, but I just feel like you said, man, that scoring just, you can get that top tier scoring for at least another year or two as you transit. It just makes so much sense in the timeline.
Yeah, in my opinion, we're out on Zegras. We're out on Martin Necas, and for me, now a vet fits that role a lot more. As soon as we got Ivan Demidov, a young kind of skilled forward and everything, it kind of took away that potential for another young guy. If we would have drafted maybe a D-man, that's what was available to us there. Or maybe even just another forward, you'd feel, okay, maybe we still need to add, somebody to our top 6, young to kind of grow. Now we're shifting gears, right? This is what the Ivan Demidov pick really allows us to shift gears, look for other ways that we're needed. We do need to add that vet experience. I think within your top 6, you need it within your bottom 6 for sure, but within your top 6, you need it. Any team that's looking to be serious in the playoffs, we see like composed heavily of vets. We're not all the way there, but as we looked at competitive, we need to start kind of sprinkling those guys in, right? So that's what fits the bill in a lot of ways.
It's unreal. Well, let us know your thoughts down below on PAtrick Kane potentially being a Montreal Canadien. Are you concerned about maybe some things in his past? Are you really happy with the idea of who he is now and the points that he could bring to Montreal as they're transitioning into a new phase? We'd love to hear from all of you down below in the comments, but that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We got daily Montreal Canadiens news, all kinds of great stuff. We appreciate every single one of you. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.